Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Mola is an Australian indie power pop and rock band from Melbourne. Originally formed in 1993 under the name Snuff, the group is best known for their 1997 ARIA-nominated debut album Golden Duck, and has recently returned from a long hiatus to release their second studio album 69 in March 2026. Their sound is described by Australian musician as a mix of noisy guitar fuzz, hard driving beats, and strident pop melodies. During their initial run, they supported major international acts like Weezer and Ash. The band currently features founding member Helen Catanash, longtime drummer David Peacock, and new guitarist-songwriter James J.J. McCann. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got J.J. McCann from Mola.
Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
Well, right now I'm sitting in Thornbury in Melbourne, and it's about 37 degrees, windy, hot, and 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm doing pretty good.
Now let's dive in. How did the band's name Mola come to be? How was that chosen?
I have no idea, because I wasn't in the band at the beginning. I wasn't even living in the same city, and I never saw the band.
Okay.
And never really heard them until I joined them a few years ago. I have very little information about the early days of the band.
That's okay.
All I have pretty much is my since my brief tenure of the last sort of 3 or 4 years.
So now let's rewind. Let's focus on your specific journey. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you think, okay, I want to be in this world of music? And how did that journey progress to you then meeting the band and joining them?
Oh, wow. That was very early on, from about the age of 8, when I picked up guitar through my granddad, who was a musician. He passed on a couple of guitars to me, an acoustic and electric guitar. So I got stuck into that. And of course, it's the cliched thing of hearing some Beatles songs, I think was the first. And then going from there, of course, and you get into the teenage years, it's more punk and stuff. And then I got into the independent music scene, particularly the Australian one and the European and UK one, not so much the American one at that stage, because I started buying those kind of records. And I love the Saints and Radio Birdman and the early Nick Cave, Scientists, that kind of stuff. And an eclectic kind of taste for a teenager, I guess, and moved on from there, playing more rock and roll, moved from the regional West Australia to Perth. I started playing live there, more sort of heavy rock, like Radio Birdman, that kind of stuff. Then I moved to Sydney for 10 years, and when I was in Sydney was during the 90s, and that's just when Mola would have started in Melbourne.
Yep.
But we didn't cross paths there at all. I didn't meet them until a bit later. I was in sort of a heavier music scene in Sydney, a sort of art rock band. 2 bass players, percussion, baritone, sax, samples, drummer, me on guitar and lead vocals, and another band with 2 of the guys from the Hard-Ons and one of the guys from Mass Appeal called Nunchucker Superfly. The other band was called Harpoon, by the way. The art rock one was called Harpoon. We played for a few years, and the Nunchucker Superfly was more of, I guess, hardcore punk. It was a bit different too. It had sort of pop elements, but very heavy. So I was doing that while Mola were kind of kicking off, but we never crossed paths. But the guys in Nunchucker knew of them. I found out later, but I didn't really know of them. I think I saw them on TV once on a Saturday morning show called Recovery in the mid-90s. So that was the only thing I could remember. But then I moved to Melbourne in the early 2000s, and I got to know Helen because she played bass with a musician called Spencer P. Jones. He was in the Johnnies, the Beasts of Bourbon, and all sorts of bands back in the day. And she played bass with him. So we played shows together in Sydney initially just before I moved down, and I got to know him and we became friends. So getting to know him, I got to know Helen. And so over the years, I would always see Helen around. And I didn't really know what Mola were up to or anything. And then about 4 years ago, they were offered a show, and the guitarist, original guitarist, was overseas and he couldn't do it. So Helen asked me to do it. So I said, yes, it was only meant to be one show or a few shows or something like that. You know, this is during all the COVID times as well, kind of 4 years ago, I guess. So it was kind of a bit of turning, throwing from lockdown to lockdown and that kind of thing, which we kind of pleasantly forget about now, I think. But we did the show, and then we wrote a song together. We decided we were going to do these Thursday night songwriting sessions when we could. And Helen would come over to my place and we'd start working on some tunes. And we wrote one, which is on the album. The first one we wrote together, which is on the album, is called Fun. So we started playing that live and realized it was heavier to the old, you know, a little bit tougher in this like Stooges kind of sense. And we decided, well, the song's going down well, why don't we write some more? So we started writing more, and that progressed into the album.
The way you guys are writing now, the collaboration process, how has that happened? You mentioned Thursday night sessions. So is it sort of just bouncing ideas together, or what is that creative process?
Yeah, it was bouncing ideas, like just basic riffs and lyrics. And, you know, if I would come up with a riff and maybe chuck some lyrics in and go, you know, hey, what do you think of this, Helen? And she would go away with that information. We'd record it on our phones or something, and then she would work on it and come back, or I would work on it. So Helen and I wrote together a bit over a few songs, input varying from song to song. You know, some was more just, I had more of an idea of how the song would go and present it and then work on it from there. But drummer Dave Peacock, who is the original drummer too, I believe, and he writes as well, but he writes solo. He wrote it, 2 songs that were on the album at home. So he just writes it himself, and then in rehearsal, we fill it out with the guitar, and but we didn't have a whole heap of rehearsals for the album in that sense. We really just went in not knowing how the lyrics were going to go. We just arranged pretty much quickly on the spot and went for it. It was not traditional in that sense. We weren't rehearsing to prepare ourselves to record, that's for sure.
So when you guys started writing, you said the first song was Fun, I believe, and you realized that there was something here. Was that surprising to you because you were just sort of playing around, or was the intention when you started writing to say, okay, we're going to create a body of work?
I don't think the intention was there. It was fun. It was more like writing fun. Well, it was fun. You know, we were enjoying the process and having fun doing it. So it just stemmed from that. And there seemed to be an easy sort of connection between Helen and myself with ideas and how to build on the ideas. So that came pretty naturally, but it just took time, you know, like meeting whenever we could and building on that. And then getting Dave in for rehearsals and trying to knock them around. So it took quite a bit of time. It wasn't a quick process.
How long did it take?
Well, gee, it's funny, like, because we stopped for a while and we were going to record about a year before we actually did, but we were starting to get ready for that rehearsal bit. But Helen went away to Morocco for a holiday, so, and everything kind of stopped for a bit. and then we started again. There was a little bit of momentum breakdown somewhere in the middle of it, but we kind of got it all back on track, which we've been seemingly quite good at. So like when things start slowing down a bit, we kind of give it a kick back into gear.
I know it's all very secretive in your guys' world, so what can you tell us is coming up?
The album's coming out. It's called 69 on our own label called Proper Remote Records. And then we've got a show on Friday 13th in a little town. Little town, it's not so little, I guess, called Castlemaine, about an hour and a half from Melbourne at the Theatre Royal. And that's with the Hard-Ons and Red Cross are out from the States touring. That's pretty exciting. So we're opening, Mola are opening, then Hard-Ons, then Red Cross. And that's in an old theatre, so I haven't played there either. We haven't played there, so it should be nice, an interesting gig, that one. Then we do the album launch at the Tote Hotel, the infamous or the famous Tote Hotel in Collingwood. Do that on the Saturday 21st of March, and that's the launch of the album. So that brings us up to the end of March, and I'm away to the UK for a quick holiday. And then hopefully we're back for some shows in May.
Now, what do you enjoy about performing live?
Live, okay. Well, it's the energy thing and getting the energy back, I guess, is the exciting bit from the audience. When it's a good audience and it's working, it really just falls into the pocket. And there's no technical difficulties. Everyone's feeling good, not tired or, when everything just falls right. And then it's just like a dream, really, and you just float through it. And then at the end you go, wow, that was one for the books. Yeah, that's the best case scenario for me.
Now, you referenced a good show with audience feedback and technical problems not happening. So when there are situations when there's technical problems or when the audience is not sort of energetically 100% back to you guys, how do your personal experience for you get yourself out of your mind talk of that negativity and just say, okay, well, this is just this situation and move on to the next one?
Well, there's different ways of dealing with that. You could throw yourself into the turmoil a little bit and engage with that turmoil and use that energy to propel what's happening, to propel you out of that in some sort of way. It's more of a kind of punk way of doing things. No, I mean, I don't mean like smashing your guitar or trashing things, but, getting close. The terrain of letting out that frustration and anger. If something's going wrong, get it out on stage. And hopefully that will propel it in some way. You use that energy. I find that works. I mean, it can be confronting. It depends on how it happens and what the audience are like and that kind of thing. But it can really get the thing more from being frustrated to being exciting.
So in those situations, do you tell the audience what the release is, or you just let it be from your side and then just propel from there?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. People kind of figure out what's happening generally, and then you just sort of, you might be able to say, look, this is happening up here and we're trying to figure it out and da-da-da.
I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs every month. For me, it's a thank you to you guys for all the hard work that you do. I love the journey of the choice, the unpacking, the booklet, the thank yous, the listening to song from 1 to whatever number. I'm not sure if you are or not aware, a massive uptick of physical around the world, Europe, UK. 3 years ago in the UK, 5.9 million vinyls sold, the biggest since 1990. Also last year in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge exchanges on. And based on these exchanges, which there needs to be a high number every day, they monitor it for tax purposes. And because of the upsurge of CDs again, CDs are now back in the basket. The research is showing that it's the teenagers diving into this world
not the older nostalgic people. And
Wow.
then we've also got Spotify that people, or the DSPs that people
Yeah.
listen to music on. What are your observations of the landscape at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I mean, that's heartening to hear that younger people and teenagers are buying CDs and are interested. I have noticed that younger people are getting interested in physical product because they've grown up in the world without it. And of course, they're seeing and reading and hearing about this physical product and are curious about it. So they want to be in on that. And I think that's makes sense, like from cassettes to CDs to vinyl. And I think it's incredible. I did see the decline in CDs while the uptick on vinyl, which was very slow, but it was gradual. Even for me, like I stopped buying vinyl often for years, like I didn't go out seeking it. Now I'm back into that, buying it on a regular basis. But it was CDs and, now I listen to streaming as well and whatnot, depending, on what time of night, what I'm doing, if I'm not listening to vinyl or whatnot. I'm glad I've just found out from you that there's young people buying CDs, because I thought CDs were maybe going the way of the dodo, but maybe not. It's good. I'm glad, even though I can't read them anymore because I need glasses. So.
Okay, so I love this next game. I know if I had to ask you this tomorrow, the next day, or in 10 years, I know your answer will be different every time. I recognize that and I understand that. I'm not saying favorite. I'm saying top of mind. If once we finish this conversation, you want to listen to 5 other artists, bands, present, past, who would those bands be or artists?
It changes all the time. Listen to Tex and the Horseheads recently. Tex Carla Jones, she's great. The Damned, I'm always listening to The Damned because my wife is a big fan and she's always getting whatever they've got happening recently. Red Cross, I've been listening to them recently. They're thrashing that new double album, the Red album. Fantastic. Oh, Julian Cope has been on my radar. I've been reading his books and listening to Julian Cope. He's fantastic.
You've been in the industry for a number of years and seeing changes in the, how things are done and so forth. For any artist who's just starting now or thinking about starting and is having a bit of hesitation about thinking whether they should or shouldn't do it, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say just follow your own path. Don't feel you have to adhere to anyone else. Create your own scene, your own people. Hang around who you feel comfortable with. Don't let anyone put you off with attitude, because, the people that do dish out the attitude, not many people will usually like them anyway. If they're doing that to lots of people, then they're not going to be fun to hang out with. Yeah, just create it yourself, because I do see it being very cliquey for young people getting into it, and it's very hard to break into scenes, and it's all very cliquey. I'm not sure exactly why that's happening these days. Maybe it's the same reasons it's always happened with various labels, people who are bands who are on different record labels. They all stick together and they won't let anyone else in the gang, that kind of thing. But I would say just forge your own path, put up the blinkers, don't let anyone put you off. And it's your own creative path as well. So you have to do it yourself. And there'll be times when it's just feels pointless. But if you still get a buzz and know that something cool is going to happen, you just keep moving towards where you think that'll happen. And usually it'll happen. Something will happen because you keep moving and going. Follow your own path.
JJ, the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message to the audience, what would you like to say?
Well, buy the record, Mola, 69 on Proper Remote Records.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.